Accidental Love by Gary Soto, Chapter 6. After school, Marissa leafed through a worn copy of Romeo and Juliet and was smart enough to figure out that neither she nor Renee could play the leads, though she had a faint inkling that perhaps they could bring a new angle to those roles. After all, couldn't Juliet be fat and Romeo skinny? And weren't they in love? They were straddling a bench under a tree that had given up all its leaves. The school campus was nearly empty. Somewhere a janitor was vacuuming a classroom. Somewhere kids were playing football on a brownish field. I could be a really, really skinny Romeo, Renee remarked. He handed Marissa a stick of gum. Then I'm Juliet. Marissa unwrapped the gum from its silvery foil and folded it into her mouth. Thanks for the gum, Romeo. She turned her attention momentarily to a lone skateboarder riding halfway up a cement wall nicked with wheel skids. The gum is for my trick or treat candy. Marissa shoved him. Get out of here. You didn't go trick or treating. Anyway, Halloween ain't for another week. It's from my last year's stash. Marissa rolled the gum into the carpet of her tongue and was ready to deposit it into her hand when Renee said, Just kidding. What's your mother like? Marissa asked. Tall and kind of strict. He chewed his gum loudly. What's yours like? Short and sometimes really angry about things. In truth, her mother had softened. She was glad about her daughter's new school, though Marissa had told her nothing about Renee. What's your dad like? Short, Renee answered, but my parents are divorced. He looked into the distance as if his father was somewhere far away, and he was trying to catch a glimpse of him. Marissa sighed and wished she hadn't asked a question. They laced their hands together and wiggled their fingers. What about the play? Marissa asked. I don't know any of these characters. She ran down the cast. Mercutio, Aeschylus, Benvolio, nurse. Marissa tapped the word nurse. I'll play the nurse, like you said earlier. I could play a person helping other people. Marissa, it's not like a nurse. Nurse, this character is sort of like a babysitter. Marissa wrinkled her forehead, confused. In the play, the nurse is Juliet's helper. Like someone who helps her dress and stuff. She's like a confidant. Where did you learn to talk like that? Marissa asked. I never use words like that one, you said. The word is confidant. It means someone you tell your innermost thoughts without worrying. What you tell that person is kept between you two. Oh, so if I tell you something really private, you'll keep it to yourself? That's right. Renee tapped the toe of his shoe. So what are you going to tell me? I'm not going to tell you anything. You'll tell somebody in your chess club. I won't. I'm your confidant. He made a large sweeping crossing motion across his heart. His Adam's apple rode up and down as he waited for her to deliver a secret. So what is it? Right then, the skateboarder rolled back, hands in his pockets, and taunted, Hey, doofus. Marissa's fists clenched. What did you say? She pulled her leg over the bench like she was getting off a horse, ready to smack him one. The skateboarder sailed away, shirt tail flapping. His greenish hair was like a horn on top of his head. He's a pimply hooey. Her chest was heaving. She was aware that her new classmates were sizing the two of them up, and earlier in the week she had heard snickers when they'd passed by together in the hallway. But this was the first direct verbal strike. So what is it to him, that ugly fool? I don't care, Renee said. So what's your secret? Marissa breathed in and out several times as she calmed herself. She assembled nice thoughts and nervously turning the ring on her thumb, announced, Well, Mr. Confidence, I have never had a beso laid on me. What? A kiss, homeboy? You mean your grandmother never kissed you? No, not like that. You know what I mean. She closed her eyes and waited for Renee to bring his face towards her. She waited and waited, then peeked through the shadows of her eyelashes. Her eyes sprang open. Renee was no longer next to her. From the corner of her eye, she could see the skateboarder who had taunted Renee. He was on his back, his legs fanning in and out, hurt by his spill. He meant nothing to her. What are you doing? She called to Renee, who was at a nearby trash can. Getting rid of my chewing gum, he hollered in return. As he tried to shake the gum into the trash can, the gum was stuck to his fingers. Oh, he's such a nerd, she thought, then closed her eyes and waited for him to return. Renee tasted of juicy fruit when Marissa finally got her first beso. The auditorium was dark, and the students were half lit in the stage lights. Marissa's stomach turned nervously. She reviewed the students, one she recognized from her English class. Then the director, who had his eyeglasses sitting on his forehead. His shirt cuffs were rolled up, his belly bounced when he took a long step, demonstrating an action. I don't know, Marissa said nervously. Her feet seemed to stick to the floor. Come on, Renee Bake, and hooked his arm into hers. They read for parts they were assigned to be in the chorus. The director, Mr. Mitchell, soothed them by saying they were stupendous actors, but singing voices were also needed. But I can't sing, Marissa whined to Renee. You can try whisper singing, Renee suggested, and then there's so many of us that if we sound really bad, no one will notice. He took Marissa's hand into his. You were great up there. They should have given you a speaking part. Get out of here, giggling. Marissa unlaced her fingers from his hand. I was terrible, and you know it. She had been asked to read lines. She was playing Juliet's mother, and she fumbled the ancient words, finally slapping the book against her thigh and saying to the drama coach, People, don't talk like this. Holding her book up to her face, hide her embarrassment and laughter. Marissa moved stage left while the director countered, Oh, no, you did very, very well. No, really, we can practice singing. I'm going to practice in the shower, Nate then asked. So how did I carry myself? So how did I carry myself? She pondered. For a moment, Marissa assumed that he was quoting Shakespeare because he sounded, what was that word? Theatrical? He sounded English. What do you mean? In my audition? Renee read the part of Mercutio. You were tight. I was tight? I was that good? Renee beamed and scratched his knee absently. I have something to confess, Marissa. Marissa snuggled up to him. What, buddy boy? She could smell his breath flavored with chewing gum. Well, you may not believe this, but I'm not really what you think I am. I flirted, blinking his eyelashes. What? Marissa wanted to know everything about her first boyfriend, to delve into his secrets. He was gangly, smart, and an odd laugh. But what wheels turned inside his head? I'm not really a nerd. Marissa covered her mouth with her hand, laughing. She slapped his shoulder. Yeah, you are. No, really, I'm very Shakespearean, very manly. Marissa laughed, bent over. Renee bent over and through the fingers covering his mouth, honked out a funny duck-like laugh. But Marissa was convinced that he was a nerd when he rode his bike to the car wash sponsored by her old high school that weekend. It was mid-morning, and the car wash was going poorly. Only 3 cars had been washed and vacuumed, and the principal's car, a large blue Buick, was nasty with fingerprints all over the window and the ashtray filled with cigarette butts. He hadn't bothered to clean it up even a little bit. Renee was holding his hand over his nose as he rode up. What happened, Marissa? First thought he was going to pull his hand away from his face and reveal a fake nose and possibly a set of vampire teeth. But when he did, she saw a rivulet of blood. I fell off my bike, he explained as he rolled his bicycle toward the chain-like link fence near the tennis courts. Someone jumped you, huh? She scanned the street. One of the girls from Washington approached them. Who's he? Without answering, Marissa led Renee to the curb, where he sat, head back, the blood staining his throat. A coin of blood fell and splashed onto his wrist. How did it happen? She asked again, this time sternly. Renee shrugged. Marissa had gotten into fights and had won some and lost others. One of the losses showed in a faint, jagged scar under her chin, which at night in bed she would trace with her fingers. She bloodied noses and had her own nose blossom with blood from roundhouse punches. It didn't matter to her life. As she had discovered so far, was mostly knocks and punches, but she felt rudely offended at her boyfriend. He was her boyfriend, wasn't he? Wouldn't be smacked around. He was so sweet. Who would hurt him? Right then, Roberto showed up, driving his parents' car. Marissa watched him emerge from the car, hugging friends and giving peace signs to those who were too cool to step forward. He jumped when someone sprayed him with the hose. Wait here, she instructed Renee. She got up and approached Roberto. Hey, girl. Roberto greeted. Hey, yourself. She's not here. Roberto slammed the car door. Who? He asked, owl-like. You know who. She stared at him until he looked over her shoulder and sneered at Renee, who was standing up. I'm going to have to smack that Swanson again, he said. Marissa bristled. So it was you who hurt Renee. Roberto gave a rat-like smile. I was just playing with him. You mean like this? Marissa hauled off a punch to his shaved temple and a second punch that brought a flow of blood from his mouth. Even though he was an 11th grader, Roberto wasn't that big, a little taller than she, and she had an arm wrestled him before and knew what he could do. I don't want to hurt you. He backed up, holding his lip. You're a girl. Some girls wet from being sprayed with the hose by boys pulled Marissa away. I had to do it because he didn't want to tune me no more. You're a hella freaky. So what? He backpedaled when Marissa, like a bull, started toward him. He shoved her with a straight arm and struck her in the face with the heel of his palm. It ain't gonna hurt me, she bellowed, but she sensed by the taste of blood that he had cut her lip. More girls pulled Marissa away, a loop of blood flying from her face. She stood breathing hard and hands shaking from the rush of adrenaline. By then, Renee was at her side, pulling on her arm, begging, Come on, let's go. To Roberto, he yelled, You better not hit her again. They left the high school car wash, walking up the street, both feeling their injuries. He's the Swanson, not you. Marissa growled, My ex-school's stupid. You should have seen the principal's car. Nasty. Violence doesn't get you anywhere, Renee commented. Marissa mumbled for him to be quiet. If he touches you like that again, I'm going to hit him back. Renee blubbered. You just said you're against violence. That's because I usually get beat up, but I don't care anymore. Marissa hooked her arm in his We're messed up. Your nose is all red. They continued down the street, kicking through the fall leaves. Renee stopped and paddled the bar of his bicycle. Get on. Marissa hopped into the bar, and Renee straddled the bike, gripping the handlebars tightly. He kicked off, straining as he tried to pick up speed. He was pedaling for his girl, and Marissa was touched by his courage with the two of them. The bicycle could crash to the asphalt street and rough them up even more. Could they stand 2 embarrassments in the span of 10 minutes? This is the end to chapter 6.